Dublin by night is a city that glitters. But Ireland and its capital have learned the hard way, all that glitters is not gold.
It was more exposed than other countries in that our loan-to-value ratios were extreme. The indebtedness of the private sector, including the banks, was more extreme than elsewhere. So when everything went into reverse, we had a bigger problem.
The Irish government stepped in to prop up 4 of the country's major banks and financial institutions that helped underpin the runaway economic success of the last decade. The bad debts, mostly from property lending, that brought these banks to their knees, have now been stripped out and placed in a so-called bad bank. Meanwhile, property prices have halved, unemployment is at 14%, debt is at a record high of 98% of GDP, and the budget deficit is equivalent to 1/3 of the country's total production.
The markets are now dictating events, and the interest rates at which the Irish government and the Irish banking system can borrow, are between 6 and 7% at the moment, which is not sustainable in the long term.
The Irish government is desperately trying to get its house in order. At the end of October, it announced €15 billion of spending cuts to achieve a budget deficit target of just 3% of GDP by 2014. There is general political consensus behind meeting that target, but the pain of achieving it will be borne by Irish voters. In the corporate sector, that pain is already apparent. Company after company is shutting up shop. The number of firms going bust in Ireland is at an all-time record and likely to stay that way.
I think things are probably going to stay at this level for a number of years. I think there is a long tail attaching to this recession for Ireland in particular. We don't envisage the numbers rising significantly above the 1,500 number for next year.
Dublin is a city that knows how to party. But in the cold light of day, the economic party that went on here for more than a decade is well and truly over. Coming to terms with the new economic reality is tough.
I think there is a trauma, there's a literally reconfiguring. We fell far because we were exceeding, we were right at the top, and I think there's been a huge trauma. But I think the younger generation, and I do think there's, if you spend enough time here, you'll see there is an energy, but it's just very underground at the moment.
Ireland's economic future depends perhaps more than any other EU country on that younger generation. With 1/3 of the population aged under 25, it's the youngest workforce in Europe. Highly educated and technologically skilled, they are one of the key attractions for multinationals deciding where to locate their European headquarters. The social networking phenomenon Facebook arrived in Dublin 2 years ago at the start of the downturn and now employs over 200 staff here.
We've almost had the market to ourselves in terms of recruitment because obviously it's been a bit of a depressed market. So it's worked extremely well for us. We find amazing talent in the market.
The talent here in this room, creative and free thinking, is the future for Ireland, according to one hugely successful online entrepreneur, the founder of social networking site Bebo.
I think what will happen over time is that the people who work at these companies, there'll be a lot of people going into tech, and as they leave the more corporate jobs, they'll actually be starting or joining startups themselves.
Birch was among some of the top names in the online world at a conference in Dublin, sharing their business experiences. Among them, Niklas Zennström, founder of Skype and now a venture capitalist looking to tap into the talent here.
It's actually beneficial to build a tech company here because most likely going to be easy to hire people, salary expectations are going to be lower. And when you have a crisis, people tend to want to build a way out of the crisis. So I think that the crisis can be a catalyst for entrepreneurs to build companies here. But there's a risk that these entrepreneurs are moving abroad.
Emigration has been Ireland's traditional response to economic hard times. Around 28,000 Irish left the country in the year to April 2010. Not all of them by choice.
What's depressing is forced emigration. And we are starting to see some of that now. And that does clearly have economic consequences in terms of the demand profile for people who are looking to sell product directly through to the Irish consumer. There are less of them and they have less money.
But the situation may not be that bleak. Convenience food maker Greencore sells mainly to the US and the UK, but is headquartered in Dublin. Its CEO believes that the recession has in some ways made the country more attractive.
Ireland is more cost competitive today than it was 18 or 36 months ago, no question about that. There is no wage inflation coming through. In fact, there's wage deflation. People are more practical in terms of some of the cost pressures on business. Professional services are cheaper now than they were 2 years ago.
And with exports crucial to recovery, one of the government's key strategies is to attract multinationals to locate here. It's already secured trophy companies like Microsoft, Google and Citibank.
Now, Ireland's economic strategy going forward is based on export-driven growth and not on consumer-driven demand and a property bubble. 90% of Ireland's exports come from the multinational sector. And if you look at the latest figures in terms of Ireland's exports, quarter on quarter, the third quarter export performance of Ireland was up over 9% on the equivalent period for last year.
Another string to Ireland's bow in its push for FDI is a corporation tax rate of just 12.5%.
The corporate tax gets you on the list. Thereafter, it's can you execute? Can you find great people? Can you build great teams? Can you help us grow this company? And if you don't do that, the corporate tax doesn't really matter.
But the Irish government is in real danger of losing control of those taxes if it fails to meet its own tough fiscal targets, and the IMF or EU steps in to bail it out.
There would be some challenge to it, I suspect, were we to have to resort to a bailout. It might indeed well be the price of the bailout, which perhaps is one reason why Irish people will undergo an awful lot of pain rather than face that reality.
Ireland is now at a crossroads. The challenge will be to find a way out of this economic darkness. There are some glimmers of opportunity, but it could be a while before the good times roll here again.